Hi, I'm Haley Boyd, Program Director of Lewis University's radio station 88.1 FM WLRA. Today, I'm here with the legendary keyboard player and co-founder of the supergroup Asia, as well as member of the band Yes and co-founder of the Buggles, Geoff Downes. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Nice to meet you.
So let's get right down to it. Asia is releasing a new box set this month called the Reunion Albums 2007 through 2012. How did the idea of releasing your new reunion box set come to light?
Well, I think we all felt that the album's really a collection. Prior to the sad passing of John Wetton 4 years ago, we were looking at the albums that we made together. We thought it would be nice to have them available in our in a box set so that people could appreciate how we got back together in 2006 and we made these great albums. I think that it's a great package, and I'm very proud of those albums. Particularly, I think the songwriting of John and I is very strong on these albums, and for us it was really business back to business again. So that's great. I think that it's more of a kind of what would you say, a history. Look at a chapter of Asia that was a very happy one for us.
Yeah, and I know that as just a fan of music in general, we as audience members love to hear these types of box sets, and we hear just really cool songs that we've never heard before. And so this is a 5 album box set with 2 concert albums and 3 studio reunion albums. You said that you're very proud of the work on this box set, but which album in this box set is your favorite and why?
Out of those albums, I think that the Omega album, I think, is the one that really, I think it's my favourite because I think some of the songs on there are really quite poignant. I think the songs like Holy War, There Was a Time. I think that it was John and I really hit a strong element of songwriting at that point, and I think that also having a producer like Paxman coming in was something that really helped that album. And I think that the Phoenix album was really just dipping our toe in the water, but I think we refined it by the time we got to Omega. I think it was a very strong album.
So how would you describe the songwriting process on these albums?
Well, for John and I, it was really back to how we started out, which was sitting around a piano and throwing our ideas at each other. Um, that's really how it came about. And so we'd had a long period where we hadn't worked together for some time prior to we started our own project called an Icon. But for actual Asia stuff, we really applied ourselves to it. And I think that it was very much the way that we'd always written together, even going back to the first album, Heat of the Moment, and Only Time Will Tell, that era of songs. We it was all very natural for us. We'd just sit down at a piano and, as I say, just throw ideas at each other and see what came out.
So you guys have been through a lot together, obviously. What does the release of this box set personally mean to you?
Well, I think it shows that we had a lot more to offer than we did in the initial. Obviously, the initial albums were enormously successful, particularly the first album, and I think that we really felt that we needed to do more. And I think we had when we had the opportunity back in 2006, we got together and started touring. I think that I think that really inspired us to go in the studio again, and that was something that we never really thought had been possible. I think when we did get back together again, it was just going to be a touring a touring issue. But of course, as time went by, we had that urge and we had the desire to get back in the studio.
That's awesome. I know that reunions for the older bands are a highlight of the career, not to just the band, but to audiences. And being the co-founder of Asia and having been through thick and thin with these people, what has been your proudest moment with your bandmates?
I think we had a lot of problems. when we were playing at the big arenas was great. I think we started off very small when we first came out in 1982, and um, we elevated to the arenas almost immediately, which was a big shift for us because we started off with a fairly modest tour. So I think those gigs were great. We played the Philadelphia Spectrum and and the big gigs all over America, and that was great. But at the same time, having said that, there was still a great fan base for Asia, and so when we did come back, there was a lot of following and a lot of enthusiasm, and people remembered those early songs, and I think that to be able to incorporate those in a live show and also bring in our new material, which was obviously fresh at the time, I think that was something that we really embraced, and I think the fans really embraced it too.
Yeah, you certainly do have a very loyal fan base. And speaking of touring, I know concerts are starting to become a regular thing again, and Asia has some dates scheduled for this year, as well as Yes having scheduled a tour for next year. How does it feel knowing that you're going back on tour again?
It's great, because obviously it has been very difficult for us um, to deal with this thing because none of us are young guys, and I think that to have the opportunity to get back out there again. It's almost 2 years since we came back off the Royal Affair tour, which was great. I mean, that was something that we really uh, had a great time doing, and I think that we were doing a set with Asian music as well as Yes. So it was for me it was a busy time, obviously because I was playing in both bands, as Steve was to some degree as well. So it was it was a very memorable tour, and I'd like to think that we can get back and do something like that again because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's certainly a positive change that I think everybody needs. What have you done to keep yourself busy during the COVID season?
Well, I think we all carried on with various projects that we were side projects that we were planning to do anyway, and I think for me, I carried on and did another album with Chris Braid. We have our own project together called the Downes Braid Association. Um, we worked on another Yes album during a period of time, and various other projects that I've revamped my recording studio, and we've managed to keep. I think we've all managed to keep busy in various degrees, but I think nothing can say that there's nothing like getting up on stage and playing music to people, and that's what we're really looking forward to in the future.
Absolutely. I think that fans have a lot to look forward to with that. All right, so I'm going to go back just a little bit. And so you made music history with the first music video on MTV with Video Killed the Radio Star with your group, the Buggles, which aired in 1981. That video was perfect for what MTV was launching at the time. How did that affect your career?
Well, I think it was something that was more in hindsight because Video Killed the Radio Star had actually been released in 1979. And of course, it wasn't until MTV launched in 1981 that we were told that they'd used the video for the opening segment of the whole channel. But I think at the time, MTV was almost certainly in its formative period, and not everybody was tuned into it. But of course, it grew and snowballed extremely fast. So it was nice to be associated with that to some degree, but at the same time, it was not something that we we designed or anything like that. They just literally picked it up because it was so I suppose an intuitive and almost forward-looking thing that they felt that title, if nothing else, was very significant to what they were doing. So it was great, and to be I'm very proud of the fact that my music was the first music on the channel that became such a big station around the world. And so yeah, that's something. It's a little feather that I've got in my cap, I suppose.
So that's actually surprising that that wasn't planned out. That was more of a coincidence.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't designed, that's for sure. And I think that particularly bearing in mind that the song itself had not really been a big hit in America. I think it peaked around about 40 something on the Billboard chart. So it was somehow it had buried itself into the psyche of people at the time in America, and it still does today. I think that it still gets played heavily on the radio over here. I know that people that never even grew up with that song know it for whatever reason because it's one of those songs I think that stood the test of time, and I think that we we're very proud of that song, and myself and Trevor particularly because it launched both our careers in a big way. And Trevor became a huge worldwide record producer, and I joined, formed Asia, and rejoined Yes, and really set myself on a not just a live career but a big studio career as well. So it was a great stepping stone, I think, for both of us in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so going just a little bit more back, you grew up in a family of musicians. Did you know from a young age that you wanted to play the keyboards?
Yeah, when I started out on bass, actually, I thought that I studied classical organ with my dad was a church organist, so there was a lot of music around the house. I mean, I'm one of four. I'm the youngest of four offspring. So both my brothers and my sister were very much into music. So it was very much about, and I was singing in church choirs and that kind of thing. So it was something that was in my blood, and I knew that music was something that would something I always wanted to do, and to have the opportunity, when I went to music college, and then uh, I had the opportunity of making a career, I suppose, and moved to London, and had some breaks that got me involved in the whole music scene down there. And it was it was once I got to that point, I think, well, this is I don't ever want to do anything else if I can possibly avoid it. And so I've been fortunate in many ways. I consider it a privilege that I've managed to last, almost 50 years in the music business, which is quite an achievement by any stretch.
Yeah, I certainly think it is. And so you mentioned that you started off playing the bass. What made you switch your focus over to the keyboards and the organ?
I really like the bass, and you know, and then after a while, I thought, well, I've done all this work as a keyboard player and piano player and organ player. I thought, well, I think there's more to it for me than just playing a bass, and so that's not decrying any bass players because I always end up writing with bass players from Trevor Horn to John Wetton to Chris Squire. Um, all these people, Glenn Hughes, they're all fantastic bass players as well. Greg Lake. Um, so I always seem to end up co-writing with bass players, and maybe there was something there that deep down in knowing, understanding bass movement and things like that was very influential on me.
Yeah, and you've certainly had a lot of time to improve on your craft, and now you're an absolute legend. And so that leads me into my last question here. What do you think is your greatest achievement as a successful rock star, musician, songwriter, and producer?
I think the thing that really stands the test of time is the songs. I think you can't if you can make a record and it's a great production, or it's it's there in a certain period of time. But I think the songs are the thing to me that really define your career, or certainly in my case. And I think it's just great that I have had that opportunity to be able to write those songs and really just get on with my career. So that to me would be the most significant thing. But of course, I mean, playing in front of all those people has been fantastic. Um, Making the records in the studio has been great. Uh, Great camaraderie with the other musicians, and how you bounce off other people. So as I said before, it's a real privilege for me to have had a career like that, where I've had all these various elements that have been real high points in my life.
Yeah, and I think as a fan, we are very lucky to be able to share in all of your successes and to be able to enjoy all of the music that you've created during the like all these years.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much again for
Yeah,
joining me, Geoff. It was a pleasure talking with you.
great to talk to you, Haley.